Most people believe the house that they're buying either at retirement or before retirement as they go into retirement is going to be the safe move, right? They're looking for something that's a little smaller, something that's a little quieter, easier to maintain, things like that. But what I see actually happening over and over again is people buy that home and then they only realize a few years later that what they actually bought is something that's costing them more, something that is adding friction and frustration to their life. And it actually has more limitations than the house that they had been living in prior to moving to the new one. But the problem is, by the time they realize it, moving again feels exhaustive, it feels expensive, it feels absolutely impossible. So they just end up staying put and just kind of taking what life's given them at that point. And this is the exact reason when I've got clients that are looking to move to Central Texas or the Texas Hill Country, I always schedule them for a Texas Hill Country legacy call. And what we do in that is I blueprint with my buyers. You know, we talk about, hey, what location do you need to be in? What are going to be the ideal locations for you? What does the house need to look like to meet your needs? And then they're able to kind of build a plan, you know, moving forward from there. And that's what I'm going to help you do in this video. So if you are moving to Central Texas, the Texas Hill Country, there's a link in the description below. You can book that call for yourself. But for now, let's talk about why do so many people get this one move wrong as they're trying to look forward to get into retirement. So the first thing here, and this is the core mistake, the biggest mistake, right? You know, whether somebody's, 45, 50, 55, 60, pre-retirement, and what they do is they make this move based on their lifestyle now, or they make the purchase based on their lifestyle now, instead of actually kind of planning ahead and thinking about, okay, what actually is going to change when I get into retirement? And when people are buying houses like this, the questions they ask, and these aren't bad questions, but the normal questions that they're asking are, hey, do I like the style? Is it a pretty house? Is it quiet? Is it smaller than what we have now? Are the monthly payments cheaper than what we have now? And again, those are good questions, but they're not necessarily the right questions. They don't really address, why people are looking to move as they retire or approach retirement. And the biggest thing most home buyers in this category fail to see or fail to recognize is how fast priorities shift once you're, work optional or you're out of work. What was important to you when you're in your 9 to 5 and stuff like that is just not important. And if you're buying a house based on what was important while you were working, it may not perform the way that you want it to once you retire. And think about it from this perspective. If you're not working from home, if you're going into an office or you're traveling a lot, you're not spending a lot of time in that house. But once you retire, you're going to be in that house a heck of a lot more often, and maybe all day, every day. So little bitty design flaws that you didn't notice when you were still working now are going to be, they're just going to become massive irritations for you on a day-to-day life. And the thing about these irritations is they're not age-related. I mean, I've had people retiring at 50 and 52 years old, so it's not an age thing. It's just a matter of being around them and being irritated by them kind of more constantly than when you were coming in and out of the office. So let's talk about a few of these. The first one is always the obvious one, right? Like, okay, is it a 2-story home or a split-level home? All right, we all, as we get older, we understand. As we retire, we're not going to be able to navigate stairs as easily. So single floor home plans usually end up better. But again, if you're planning for retirement and you're working right now, you're up and down the stairs a couple of times a day, maybe 3 times a day, because you're going into the office. But when you're home, okay, let's say that you're gonna, consult an office at home. Well, if that office is upstairs or if it's a loft area you're gonna use for your office, well, you might be up and down the stairs 15 or 20 times a day. Okay, not so bad if you're healthy and your fitness level is high. But again, as we get older, does that become a bigger issue to where, every time you're looking up the stairs, you're like, the hell with it. I'm just going to put my laptop, I'm going to sit on the couch instead of going up to the office. That's the kind of things that I'm talking about. And the bad thing is that typically happens a little bit faster than what we would like to see in ourselves, right? We all see ourselves as healthy and young and vibrant, but it starts to add up a little faster than we would hope. You may bust an ankle or a knee out hiking or skiing or something, and it never quite gets right after that. And then again, that stairwell just kind of looks intimidating. You're like, the hell with it, I'm not going to do it. So one of the other things that we see when this happens is people just stop using the upstairs. They just live downstairs. Now they're living in half of a house, but they're paying for the full thing. They're heating and cooling the full thing. It becomes a lot smaller of a piece of property. And as you're looking forward to going into retirement, if you're only utilizing half of a house, that's not the freedom that you really want in your retirement. It's more like being confined to the downstairs. Again, you're paying for the whole thing. If you can't use it, why do you have it? The second mistake I see a lot of is underestimating maintenance. While you're working, you've got the income coming in. If you need something painted, if you need trees trimmed, if you need your yard trimmed, you're hiring somebody to do that. The inconvenience is taken care of because you've got the income and it's no problem. Now, and when people decide to retire, well, the income becomes a little more fixed. You might be a little more cognizant of the money that you're spending. And so every maintenance thing that needs to be done, you have the decision to make. Okay, am I going to, spend the money on that? Or, because I've got this extra time on my hand, is that a maintenance issue that I'm going to take on myself? And I don't know if you're like me, but I like to be able to do things myself. But what I end up finding myself doing is, the more maintenance that I do for myself, the more things that I'm involved in fixing around this place or cleaning up on the property, the less time I have for things that I really want to do, like, go fishing or take in a ball game or go for a hike or something like that. So again, as you get into that retirement mode, where are you going to prioritize your time? Are you going to be taking care of those maintenance items, or do you actually want to be enjoying life in your retirement? And that only gets complicated further when you've got a large piece of property. I'm on 5.5 acres here. There's a lot of maintenance involved here. Do you have a swimming pool? Okay, that's even more maintenance. Did you buy a house that's got, older HVAC systems and things like that you're constantly having to maintain? Okay, when you start compounding all of those things together, again, the time that you thought you were going to have for, new hobbies and staying active and things like that, now all of a sudden you're spending all of your time in retirement maintaining things around a property when you really wish you were doing something else. And it's not like I'm sitting here telling you, hey, I'm anti-property or I'm anti-swimming pools or I'm anything like that. I just want you to stop and take inventory of what do you want retirement to look like, and then make sure that you're making that house choice based on what you want to be doing when you're no longer having to go into work. The third issue that I see a lot is, we'll call it location friction. I get a lot of clients, especially kind of here right on the outskirts of Austin, that, when they move here immediately, they're like, okay, I need to be close to schools and things like that for my kids. But Chris, someday we want to buy, 10 acres further out in the hill country. And when the kids are gone, we want to build out there. And that's kind of our retirement dream. Okay, that's great. But when that time comes and they build out there, let's say their kids are gone when they're 50 years old and they build out there and they're working from home, and that's great. But again, as that time goes on, when 50 becomes 60 or 65 and they're on that property way outside of town, all right, well, now all of a sudden we've got more doctor's appointments. We've got to go see that specialist, or they're perfectly healthy, but their kids now have grandkids, and those grandkids are in Austin or in some other town that they need to get to the airport to fly to, but the location they decided to build this house is a long way from Austin or a long way outside of the airport. Okay, that's what I call location friction. And I'll tell you right now, I'm about 30 minutes from downtown Austin, and I go out of my way to find reasons not to go downtown. I don't want to go because it's a long drive. And yes, I go down once a month, something like that, something to eat, whatever. But I look for reasons not to do that. And now if I lived another 15 minutes out or 20 minutes out, I can guarantee you that I wouldn't even go once a month. It would be a lot less than that. But if I'm out there and I need to get, again, to family, if I need to get to medicine, if I need to get to the airport, those things become an inconvenience. And, most people are like, I'm okay because I only have to go to the airport once a month or whatever, a couple of times a year. I get that. But just make sure when you're planning out that retirement, make sure that the location that you're picking for it is okay with you, and not just the next stage of life, we'll call it kind of early retirement or pre-retirement. But the next stage after that, you've got kids and grandkids and school plays and sports and things like that. Make sure that the location and the property that you're picking will kind of transcend all of those next stages for you, as opposed to, okay, I'm good for 5 years, but my daughter had twins, and you know what? I love being a grandpa or a grandma, and I want to be around those twins as often as possible. And it's just not really, it doesn't really make sense because I'm an hour away. I want to be closer to them, so now I'm going to sell this property to get closer. That's what I'm trying to get you to avoid. Another problem I see a lot of people have is not really planning ahead for escalating, we'll call them non-negotiables, property taxes. Okay, we know in Texas property taxes can continue to go up. Insurance is going to continue to go up. My house insurance has doubled in the last 5 years. My car insurance has doubled in the last 5 years, and I don't think insurance companies are going to be lining up anytime soon to start giving me rate cuts, right? So as you're planning that next stage, okay, I'm a very fiscally conservative person, so I try to instill that in my buyers. Like, look, just because you can afford a $2 million house, that tax number is going to continue to go up until you reach 65. Then it'll slow down, but it'll continue to creep up incrementally. So making sure that, when we hit retirement, none of us have, a thought of running out of money, right? That's not a thought. We've planned, we've saved, we've invested, but if you go a little bit more overboard than what you were planning just because, I really like this house, if you go overboard, okay, that can end up affecting you long term. And if your property taxes continue to go up, if your insurance continues to go up because it's a large house surrounded by woods, and the insurance company is swearing that it's going to burn down, okay, that tends to change that retirement outlook, right? You don't get to take as many trips as you thought. Maybe you don't get to spend that month in Europe. You only get to go for 10 days or something like that. So taking stock of what's important and being a little bit on the conservative side, understanding that these costs are going to continue to go up. I mean, inflation's a real thing. The Fed is tasked with, making sure we're at 2% inflation. It's usually 3 or 4, but again, inflation's a real deal, and we know it's going to happen. So, just making sure that that next house and the inflation that's going to happen as a result of it doesn't end up changing what your retirement plans actually are. And the next mistake I want to talk about is the forever home. And I always say that this house that I live in is a pine box house. They're going to pull me out of here in a pine box. But it really is a bit of a myth. The reality is there's very few homes that are truly designed for you to live through multiple stages of life in. I mean, when you're looking at houses, what works for you now from a layout may not work later. Door widths. Very few houses are designed with that in mind, to get into the bathrooms, to get into the showers and things like that. So this myth again of a forever home. It's very rare to find that without some modification. Okay, so then the question becomes, all right, if I get to a point that I need to modify my house, do I want to stay there? Does the location work? Does everything else work? And I just need to make it more accessible. That's one thing, but again, that's going to be more, more money out of pocket to make it accessible. Or at that point, does it make more sense to sell that house and to move into something that's already accessible that you don't have to retrofit? And what I see a lot is people that are, the house feels charming now, and it's quaint and it's cozy, but again, there's no room in it for later. And then even for properties like this one, at 51, I can maintain 5.5 acres, but I doubt that I'll really want to maintain the land at age 70. So again, what I call a pine box house probably isn't really a pine box house. That's something that doesn't really exist in my mind. And so when we're talking about this, the actual mistake that I see is people are going, oh, well, I can adapt to the house, or I can change the house if I need to. And, in actuality, yeah, you probably probably can, but again, is it going to be financially feasible? Is it going to make sense? Or would it make more sense to, find a house that doesn't really need adapting to? Or again, maybe that plan is, okay, I'm buying this house now that I'm pre-retirement or at the beginning of retirement, understanding that at some point I'm probably going to end up having to sell this house and buy something else. Now, if that's the choice, make sure you understand that if you're planning on selling this house, make sure you're buying a house now that somebody else is going to want to buy, because if it's quirky, if it's unique, and it's just right, well, maybe not everybody's gonna look at it that way, so make sure you buy a house that you can actually sell if that's your plan. Okay, so now that we've talked about some of those mistakes, let's talk about some of the things that really smart pre-retirement buyers do and how they avoid these mistakes. Okay, the first thing they do is they define what they want their days to look like. And it's not necessarily finding, a house that's cute or whatever. Okay, what do I want my days to look like? Do I want my days to be out working in a yard? Okay, then I need something that's in a yard. Do I want flower beds? Okay. Do I want to be able to sit on a big porch and enjoy coffee every morning and read the newspaper? Okay, I need to, find something with a big porch. And I know that seems kind of intuitive, right? Of course I need to plan out my retirement. That's my retirement. This is what I want to do. But again, you're not going to be going into the office anymore. So your day shifts from what it had been to what you think it's going to be. So I just encourage you to really take time and put paper to pencil. And I guess I had that backward, put pencil to paper, and kind of describe to yourself, okay, what do I want my day-to-day life to look like? What do I want it to look like in the middle of the day? Am I going to be traveling to play golf with buddies? Am I going to be, do I want to be in a workshop doing woodwork? Am I going to be going downtown to museums? Am I going to be visiting my kids? Okay, put that pencil to paper and design your day-to-day life, your ideal day-to-day life, and then pick your house based on that. And then the second thing is, once you've got that done and you start looking at houses, okay, you're going to find hopefully a lot of houses that work, ones that you like in good locations and that fit that day-to-day life. But then start to stress test those houses from the perspective of, okay, as I age, how does life change? Again, if it's a 2-story house, well, as you age, you're not going to use the upstairs. Okay, it may be there for your kids and grandkids, but you're going to live life downstairs. That's how it's going to change. Outside of that, okay, if something happens and I become mobility impaired, all right, well, is this an easy layout for me to navigate? Or, am I going to be widening doors? Or are there, corners that are too sharp? Is the shower big enough? Things like that. Because if you find quite a few properties that work, but then you start looking at things through the lens of how am I going to be able to stay in this house long term, you're probably going to be able to get rid of more options, and it allows you to focus on a few options that are going to be better for you long term. And then the third thing that I really encourage you to do is don't look at everything individualized, okay? Think about your cost, think about your location, think about the layout, and think about all of those things combined. And I mean, you could even give it a grading system, right? 1 to 10, and whatever, 1 is best or 10 is best, and either the lowest number or the highest number, doesn't matter. But once you get down to, maybe 2 or 3 properties that you like, and then you can apply the grade to it, right? You may, find a house where you're like, okay, the location isn't ideal, but that layout is really good. And I know that my costs are going to be lower because the tax rates here is, 1.23, and the tax rate in the other ones are over 2. So, when you look at it as a whole, maybe one house starts to stand out a little bit. And again, you're applying these metrics that are going to help you, now in pre-retirement, but also as you move forward into retirement, you hopefully can pick out a house that's going to be more rounded overall for what you're actually looking for. And at the end of the day, the smartest pre-retirement buyers that I deal with, they're focused on a few things, but one of the main things that they focus on is not rushing. You've got time to do this. You might have a year to find the right house. If you have the right criteria set up front and you understand what your day-to-day life looks like and you understand what you want out of that property, okay, you can take your time. You can focus on the flexibility. Okay, this house will last me well into retirement. You know, I'm not going to have to make issue or changes even if I have issues with my health or something like that. And then also I know that when I'm picking this house, you know, I've taken the time to make sure that financially this is predictable. I understand that my tax rate, you know, here is lower, and so I'm gonna isolate houses that are in this area. And when you do that, when you plan ahead, and when you're slow and meticulous and methodical about planning that out, okay, that's when you find that house, whether it's in pre-retirement or retirement, that you can be in for maybe 20 or 30 years, instead of looking up 5 years later going, man, I made a massive mistake. I've got to sell this house and move on to the next one. I don't want that to happen to you.